In her small apartment in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Emily Harrison was brewing her morning coffee while gazing out at the autumn scenery spreading beyond her window. Her face bore the experience of 10 years working as an accountant, yet she still maintained a youthful smile. Looking at the family photo placed on the kitchen counter, she smiled softly. Another day begins, she said to herself. Emily worked as a senior accountant at a local mid-sized company, where she was trusted by both colleagues and supervisors. With her sharp sense for numbers and honest character, she had become an indispensable part of the company's financial management. Her morning routine was always the same, drinking coffee while reflecting on the previous day's work and checking her schedule for the day. In the photo were her parents, Robert and Margaret. Both had gentle personalities and were ideal parents for Emily. After retirement, they lived quietly, enjoying gardening and reading, occasionally volunteering at the local church. The photo also showed another person, Emily's sister Jessica. Jessica had married Mike Thompson 3 years ago and was currently living as a homemaker. Mike was a cheerful man who worked at a local insurance company. Initially, both parents and Emily had liked him, and he was always the one who livened up family gatherings. Emily had made it a habit to visit her parents' home every weekend. Gathering around her mother's home-cooked meals to discuss the week's events was precious family time. Recently, her father had started helping her mother in the kitchen more often. Watching her parents together warmed Emily's heart. "I wonder what they'll cook this Sunday," Emily murmured to herself as she began washing her coffee mug. However, she had recently noticed that contact from Jessica had decreased. Previously, they used to call or email several times a week, but in the past few months, it had dwindled to about once a month. When Emily called Jessica, conversations often ended quickly with short responses like "I'm busy." Maybe she's having a hard time adjusting to married life, Emily told herself. She had heard that Mike's work was going well and that he had recently been promoted. She thought it was natural for a young couple to be busy. Her parents had also been concerned recently about Jessica not showing her face much. Especially her mother Margaret often worried, saying, "I wonder if Jessica is doing well." Emily always reassured her parents by saying, "She's fine, just busy," but deep down, she was a little concerned herself. Looking at the clock, she saw that it was almost time to leave for work. Emily put away her coffee cup and picked up her bag. While fixing her hair in front of the mirror, she had no doubt that another ordinary day was beginning. At work, there would be pleasant conversations with colleagues, and in the evening, she planned to call her parents and talk about weekend plans. Opening the front door, the cool autumn breeze touched her cheek. Walking down the apartment hallway, Emily remembered the dream she had last night. It was a very warm dream where the whole family was gathered together, laughing. "I'm sure we'll all get together again soon," she murmured as she walked down the stairs. At Emily's desk on the 3rd floor of Harrison & Associates accounting firm, morning sunlight was streaming in. She was tapping on her calculator while checking a client's monthly financial statements. Her colleague Sarah Wilson, who sat at the next desk, approached with a coffee cup in hand. "Good morning, Emily. You're early again today." "Good morning, Sarah. I need to finish these statements by today." Sarah was a reliable colleague for Emily. While raising 2 children, she was always cheerful and helped create a pleasant atmosphere at work. "By the way, are you going to your parents' place this weekend?" Sarah asked, settling into her chair. "Yes, as usual," Emily smiled, pausing her work. "Mom is excited about trying a new recipe. Dad has recently discovered cooking too, so they're both standing in the kitchen together." "That's wonderful. I hope my parents will spend their time like that when they retire," Sarah said with a slightly envious tone. "Is your sister coming too?" Emily's expression clouded slightly. "I'm not sure. She seems busy lately and doesn't show her face much. I suppose it's understandable since she's a newlywed. Newlyweds are busy. I also went home less frequently when I was newly married," Sarah nodded understandingly. "But I'm sure she'll come back once things settle down." After finishing her morning work, Emily received a new email on her computer. The sender was Jessica. The subject line read, "Status Update." Emily opened the email with some surprise. "Sorry for not being in touch lately. Mike's work has been busy, and I've been rushing around with house matters. But I'm doing well, so don't worry. Oh, Mike got promoted last week. He became a section manager in the sales department. The company even had a celebration party, and I was so happy. I'm attaching a photo, so please take a look. Let's talk more leisurely sometime soon. With love, Jessica. The attached photo showed Mike in a suit, surrounded by office colleagues and smiling. Jessica was standing next to him, smiling happily. Emily sighed with relief looking at the photo. Thank goodness. She looks well. However, upon closer inspection, Jessica's smile seemed a bit stiff. Or maybe it just looked that way because it was a photo. Emily shook her head and dismissed her unnecessary worry. During lunch break, Emily called her mother Margaret. Hello, Mom? It's me, Emily. Oh, Emily. You must be tired. How's work going? It's going well. How are you feeling, Mom? I'm doing fine. I was just tending to the garden. The autumn flowers are blooming and they're so beautiful. Emily felt comforted by her mother's voice. Oh, I got an email from Jessica. She says Mike got promoted. On the other end of the phone, Margaret's voice became slightly subdued. I see. That's good news. But Jessica hasn't shown her face lately. I understand Mike is busy, but I'd like to see her occasionally. Mom, you worry too much. Newlyweds are busy. I'm sure she'll come visit again once things settle down. You're right. But I wonder if anything has changed. When I called her the other day, her voice sounded tired. Emily remembered the photo she had just seen. Jessica's slightly stiff smile. However, she didn't think it was worth mentioning to her mother. She's fine, Mom. I'll try calling her myself sometime. Please do. It's really reassuring to have you around. After hanging up, Emily felt conflicted. In the family, she was the only one who was single, and she felt like she was shouldering all of her parents' worries alone. But she didn't think that was a bad thing. Family members support each other. During her afternoon work, Emily's cell phone rang. This time it was a call from her father Robert. Emily, can you talk now? Dad? What's wrong? It's unusual for you to call during the day. Robert's voice sounded somewhat worried. Actually, it's about Jessica. Emily felt anxiety creep into her chest. What happened to Jessica? It's nothing major. It's just that when I went to the bank the other day, I happened to see Mike. But when I tried to call out to him, he hurried away. He might not have noticed me, but he seemed a bit strange. Strange how? Well, he seemed restless and was looking around nervously. He might be busy with work since he was just promoted. Emily pondered. Jessica's email, her mother's worry, and now her father's story. She had a feeling that dots were about to connect, but she couldn't pinpoint anything specific. Dad, it's probably work stress. He just got promoted, so his responsibilities must be heavier. You're right. I might be overthinking it. But if anything happens, I might rely on you, Emily. Of course. Please consult me about anything. After hanging up, Emily tried to concentrate on work, but she couldn't stop thinking about her family. She was particularly concerned about Jessica and Mike's situation. But it wasn't serious enough to ask directly, and she might be seen as meddling unnecessarily. In the evening, on her way home from work, Emily stopped by the supermarket. She was buying dessert to bring to her parents' house this weekend. While choosing her mother's favorite chocolate cake in the confectionery section, she happened to meet Linda Parker, Jessica's friend. Oh, Emily. It's been so long. Linda, how are you? Linda had been Jessica's friend since high school. How is Jessica doing? I haven't been able to reach her lately, Linda said with some concern. Yes, she seems busy but she's well. Mike got promoted. That's good. I'm relieved, Linda showed a relieved expression. Actually, I happened to see her in town the other day, but she seemed to have lost a lot of weight. When I tried to call out to her, she hurried away. Emily felt anxiety creep into her chest. Her father had said something similar. Lost weight? Yes. Much more than before. And somehow, her expression seemed dark too. Emily thought about it. In Jessica's photo, she was smiling, but her cheeks did seem somewhat hollow. Maybe she's been eating irregularly because she's busy with married life. That might be it, Linda nodded, but still looked worried. If anything happens, could you let me know? We've been friends for a long time. Of course. But she's fine, I'm sure. After parting with Linda, Emily returned to her apartment alone. While preparing dinner, various fragmentary pieces of information swirled around in her head. Jessica's stiff smile, her mother's worry, her father's observation of Mike's behavior, Linda's mention of Jessica's weight loss. Maybe I'm overthinking it, Emily murmured to herself. That night, even after getting into bed, Emily couldn't fall asleep easily. Outside the window, she could hear the sound of autumn wind swaying the trees. Tomorrow was Friday, and she planned to go home for the weekend. Surely Jessica would show her face there too. And she would find out that her worries were unnecessary. If we all get together, everything will be fine, Emily told herself as she finally fell asleep. The next day, Emily finished her last client phone conference and was organizing the scattered documents on her desk while thinking about her weekend family visit. Her mother Margaret had said she would try a recipe from a newly purchased cookbook, and her father Robert was excited about making a dish using tomatoes from his garden. Her cell phone suddenly rang loudly. The screen displayed "Mom." Emily smiled as she answered the phone. How are the preparations for tomorrow going? However, what she heard from the other end was her mother's voice, more furious than she had ever heard before. Emily. What did you do to us? Emily jumped up from her chair. Her mother's voice was shaking and she was clearly distraught. What's wrong? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The bank called. Our savings are gone. $500,000. Emily's mind went blank. $500,000. All of her parents' retirement savings had disappeared. Calm down. What happened? Tell me the details. How can I stay calm? Her mother's voice was becoming hysterical. You're the only one who can access our account. You deceived us. Emily felt suffocated. I didn't do anything. I would never do such a thing. Don't lie. The bank person said so. Money has been gradually moved for 3 months. We don't use online banking, and we gave you our PIN. But Emily tried desperately to explain, but she was interrupted by her mother's shouting. Come here right now. Your father is furious too. You stole our retirement funds. To think our own daughter would do such a thing to us. The phone hung up. Emily stared at her cell phone, standing frozen in place. Colleagues around her were looking back with concern, but Emily couldn't see anything. Emily, are you okay? Sarah rushed over. I have to go home. Something terrible has happened to my parents, Emily's voice was shaking. Sarah placed her hand on Emily's shoulder as she slumped into her chair. What happened? My parents' savings disappeared. $500,000. Mom says I did it. That's ridiculous. You would never do such a thing. Emily gathered her belongings and stood up. I have to go anyway. I need to find out the truth. While driving, Emily's mind was in chaos. It was true that she knew her parents' account information. A few years ago, when her parents started online banking, she had helped them set it up. But she had never accessed it since then. Did someone impersonate me? But how? The 30-minute drive to her parents' house felt like an eternity. At every traffic light, Emily desperately traced her memory. Had there been any suspicious emails or phishing scam contacts recently? Was there a possibility that her parents' computer had been infected with a virus? When she parked in front of her parents' house, she could see the light in the living room. Emily took a deep breath and opened the front door. In the living room sat her parents, but there was none of the usual warm atmosphere. Her father Robert's face was red with anger, and her mother Margaret was crying. And sitting at the end of the sofa was Jessica. Jessica? Why are you here? Jessica stood up and glared at Emily. Sister did it. Who else could it be? Wait a minute. I didn't do anything. Liar. Jessica's voice was shaking with anger. How could you do such a terrible thing as stealing Mom and Dad's retirement money? Robert spoke heavily. Emily, sit down. We need you to explain. Emily cautiously sat in a chair. Dad, I really don't know anything. Please tell me the details. This morning, the bank called. Robert's voice was cold. They contacted us about an unusually large amount of money movement that we don't normally make. When they investigated, they found that funds had been gradually moved from our savings account over the past 3 months. Margaret wiped her eyes with a handkerchief and said, first it was $5,000, then $10,000. And recently, large amounts like $200,000. A total of $480,000. Emily was stunned. But who would do such a thing? According to the bank, all accesses were from online banking. Robert removed his glasses and wiped them. We don't use online banking. You're the only one who knows our PIN and access information. Dad, I swear I didn't do anything. Jessica interrupted. Stop it already. Who else but Sister could do it? Mike doesn't even know Mom and Dad's account information. Emily looked at Jessica. Her sister's face was distorted with anger, but she thought she saw some other emotion deep in her eyes. Something like fear, like guilt. Jessica, do you know something? What would I know? All I know is that Sister betrayed our parents. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Everyone fell silent. Who could it be? Margaret said in a small voice. Robert stood up and headed to the front door. They could hear the door opening, followed by a low male voice. Good evening. This is the Massachusetts State Police. Are you Robert Harrison? Emily's heart felt like it was about to stop. The police had come. Yes, that's me. Robert's voice was shaking. You filed a complaint about bank fraud today. Our investigation is complete. We'd like to have a word with you. Robert returned to the living room. Behind him followed a male detective in his late 30s. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to hear about the situation. Margaret said in a trembling voice, our daughter took our money. Ma'am, please wait a moment. The detective raised his hand to stop her. First, let me share our investigation results. Emily clung to her chair. This might be the moment her life would end. We cooperated with the bank's security department and investigated all access records. We have determined all the details of the unauthorized access to online banking. The detective opened his notebook. The source IP address, the device used, login times, everything is recorded. Jessica's face suddenly turned pale. And we have identified the real culprit. The detective turned toward Jessica. Is Michael Thompson here? Silence fell over the living room. Only the sound of the clock's second hand could be heard. A faint voice escaped from Jessica's mouth. Mike. The detective continued. Michael Thompson used a smartphone provided by his company to illegally access Robert Harrison's bank account over the past 3 months and transferred a total of $480,000 to his own account. Emily looked at her sister in disbelief. Jessica covered her face with both hands and began to shake her shoulders. Jessica, Emily's voice was trembling. Did you know? The detective's next words would completely change this family's fate. Michael Thompson is currently on the run. Jessica Thompson, we have some questions for you as well. The detective's words cut through the air. Jessica stood up from her chair and staggered. Mike? No, that can't be possible. Jessica's voice was trembling, but her eyes clearly showed distress. Jessica, Emily tried to approach her sister, but Jessica waved her hand to stop her. Don't touch me. This is some kind of mistake. Mike would never do such a thing. The detective calmly opened his notebook. Let me give you the details. On August 15 at 2:17 p.m. 3 months ago, the first access occurred. The device used was an iPhone provided to Michael Thompson by Thompson Insurance Company. The source IP address was from his home. Robert and Margaret were stunned. Emily was beginning to rapidly understand the situation. But how did he get Dad's account information? Emily asked. The detective turned around. Probably heard it from someone in the family. Jessica, do you have any idea? Jessica's face turned even paler. I didn't do anything. Jessica, Margaret stood up. You know something, don't you? Mom, Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes. But Mike isn't a bad person. There must have been some circumstances. Robert exploded with anger. Circumstances? What circumstances could justify stealing our retirement funds? The detective intervened. Please calm down. Let me tell you the facts. The stolen funds were transferred to Michael Thompson's personal account and then sent to multiple investment companies. However, many of these investment companies turned out to be fraudulent. Emily gasped. Investment fraud? Yes. Michael Thompson appears to have been deceived by so-called guaranteed profit investment schemes and suffered heavy losses. According to our investigation, he had accumulated debts of nearly $1 million. Jessica collapsed into her chair. $1 million? I never heard about that. Jessica, Emily sat next to her sister. Did you really not know anything? Jessica covered her face with both hands. I knew. But not everything. I knew Mike had failed at investing. But I never imagined it was this much. Margaret said in a trembling voice, so he took our money? The detective continued. According to our investigation, Michael Thompson was being threatened by debt collectors. The threats said, if you don't pay back the money, we'll harm your family. Jessica looked up. With her face a mess from tears, she said, I knew that. Scary people came to our house too. Mike was trying to protect me. Does that justify stealing your parents' money? Robert's voice was shaking with anger. No. Jessica stood up. Mike refused at first. But when they showed him my photo and said, your wife is beautiful, that's when Mike. Emily understood. So Mike asked for Dad's account information then? Jessica nodded. But he said it was just a little bit. He said he'd pay it back right away. He got promoted too, so he could pay it back with his bonus. Just a little bit? Margaret's voice rose. $480,000. The detective interrupted. Actually, while Michael Thompson is also a victim of investment fraud, he cannot escape the charges of unauthorized access to another person's bank account and theft. Jessica, if you gave him the account information, you could be considered an accomplice. Jessica's knees buckled. Emily rushed to support her sister. But you were deceived too, Emily held her sister's hand. You were used by Mike. That's not true, Jessica said through tears. Mike loves me. He was just cornered by the situation. He's not a bad person. Robert stood up and began pacing around the room. Not a bad person. After ruining our lives? Dad, will the money come back? Emily asked the detective. The detective shook his head. It will be difficult. Many of the fraudulent investment companies have already closed, and recovering the funds will be challenging. However, bank insurance might apply. Margaret sat down on the sofa. The money we saved working for 40 years. Emily went to her parents and put her arm around her mother's shoulder. It's okay, Mom. I'll figure something out. We can't burden you, Robert said. When we didn't even believe you. Dad, we're family, Emily's eyes also filled with tears. Let's forget that you doubted me. Now is the time for the family to unite. The detective closed his notebook. If you know anything about Michael Thompson's whereabouts, please let us know. Jessica, we'll need to conduct a formal interview with you later. Jessica's voice was small. Last night, he said he was going on a business trip for a while and left. But I didn't think it was a normal business trip. He had too much luggage. Why didn't you contact us immediately? The detective asked. I was scared. I thought it would mean betraying Mike. And I never imagined he had stolen my parents' money. After the detective left, heavy silence flowed through the living room. Emily sat between her parents, and Jessica huddled in the chair across from them. Jessica, Emily opened her mouth. Is there anything else you're hiding? Jessica looked up. For these 3 months, Mike has been strange. He got phone calls in the middle of the night, and unknown people came to the house. When I asked questions, he just said it's work stuff. And you didn't ask anything? Margaret inquired. Even when I asked, he wouldn't tell me. But he said he loved me, so I thought everything would be okay. Robert sighed deeply. We have to turn Mike over to the police. Dad, Jessica stood up. Please, give Mike another chance. A chance? Robert's voice was cold. He ruined us. Emily had mixed feelings. She couldn't blame her sister. She could understand the desire to believe in someone you love. However, it was also true that her parents' lives had been ruined. Jessica, do you really not know where Mike is? Jessica shook her head. I really don't know. But it might be at Mike's mother's house. She lives in Florida. He once said, if anything happens, I'll go to Mom's place. Emily picked up the detective's business card. I have to give this information to the police. Big sister, please, Jessica cried. Forgive Mike. Emily hugged her sister. Jessica, loving someone and forgiving them are different things. If Mike really loved you, he wouldn't have done anything to hurt your family. 3 days later, Mike was arrested at his mother's house in Tampa, Florida. Watching his image on the TV news, Jessica continued crying on the sofa at her parents' house. Her hand, still wearing her wedding ring, was trembling. He never told me the truth until the end, Jessica's voice was hoarse. Maybe even his words of love were all lies. Emily put her arm around her sister's shoulder. Jessica, I think Mike did love you. He just loved you in the wrong way. Margaret was preparing dinner in the kitchen, but her hands stopped frequently. The reality of losing 40 years of savings hit her in small daily moments. Avoiding expensive ingredients and searching for budget recipes, Emily's heart ached seeing her mother like this. A week later, Mike's formal indictment was decided. For fraud and theft charges, the prosecution planned to seek a 3-year prison sentence. Jessica began divorce proceedings, but during the process, new facts came to light. Mike had also accumulated debts on multiple credit cards, totaling $200,000. He borrowed money in my name too, Jessica reported after returning from the lawyer's office. He used my signature without permission. Robert continued reading his newspaper in silence. Lately, he had become less talkative and wasn't as enthusiastic about gardening as before. He seemed to be losing the energy to restart his life. Dad, Emily sat next to her father. I can make an early withdrawal from my company's 401k plan. There's a penalty, but it would cover living expenses for a while. I can't let you use your retirement funds, Robert said without looking up from his newspaper. We're family, Dad. That night, Emily was in the kitchen alone with her mother. While washing dishes, Margaret said in a small voice, Emily, we really doubted you. Can you forgive us? Don't worry about that. Anyone would be confused. But we couldn't believe in our own daughter. That's what hurts the most. 2 months later, Mike's trial began. Jessica was to appear as a witness, but she couldn't sleep at all the night before. I'm scared to see him tomorrow, Jessica sat on the bed next to Emily. Since returning to her parents' house, she often slept in the same room as her sister. It's okay. I'll go with you. In court, Mike looked haggard and like a different person when she saw him for the first time in a while. Jessica's testimony was brief, but during that time, Mike never looked in her direction once. The verdict was 2 years in prison without suspended sentence. Mike was immediately incarcerated, and visits were allowed only once a month. "Are you going to visit him?" Emily asked, and Jessica shook her head. "I won't see him anymore. It's all over." A year passed after that. Jessica found a part-time office job and gradually began walking the path toward independence. Her parents' life also stabilized somewhat with Emily's support and Social Security. Some compensation was also paid from bank insurance, and while not complete, they were able to secure minimum retirement funds. On Thanksgiving night, the four of them gathered around the dinner table for the first time in a while. There were still awkward parts, but the former warmth was beginning to return. "Next year, maybe I'll try roasting the turkey," Jessica said modestly. "Oh, did you learn to cook?" Margaret smiled. "Not yet. But little by little." Emily looked around at her family. Repairing damaged trust relationships takes time, but it's not impossible. True family might be those who, even when betrayed and hurt, can ultimately forgive and support each other. "Next year's Thanksgiving, we'll surely spend it with more smiles," Emily smiled softly. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall. Like the beginning of a new season, a quiet light of hope was shining into the Harrison house.